Nazi concentration camps were more than death factories. They were the epitome of calculated cruelty and systematic dehumanization. Millions of Jews, political dissidents, Roma, disabled individuals, and others perished in these camps. But their stories extend beyond the well-known horrors of gas chambers and forced labor. Behind the barbed wires, prisoners endured medical experiments, psychological torment, and unimaginable suffering. What's even more chilling is the scale and diversity of atrocities inflicted, many of which remain unknown to the general public. Elsewhere, Nazi doctors experimented with chemical burns by applying toxic substances directly to prisoners' skin. Freezing experiments subjected individuals to ice-cold waters or frigid air until they lost consciousness or died, as researchers studied hypothermia. These experiments had no ethical justification. They were gruesome explorations of pain and suffering, carried out with complete disregard for human life. While the Holocaust is largely associated with Jewish persecution, other marginalized groups faced targeted extermination. Jehovah's Witnesses were imprisoned for their refusal to pledge allegiance to Hitler. Inside the camps, they were marked with purple triangles and often singled out for psychological and physical abuse because of their steadfast beliefs. Homosexual men were another persecuted group. Beyond the pink triangles marking them as degenerates, many were castrated or subjected to curing experiments involving electric shocks or chemical injections. These inhumane treatments were part of the Nazis' twisted agenda to eliminate what they deemed social deviance. Soviet POWs suffered some of the highest death rates in the camps. They were deliberately starved, forced into back-breaking labor, and summarily executed. The Nazis viewed these prisoners as subhuman, subjecting them to unspeakable treatment rarely highlighted in mainstream narratives. In a deeply disturbing twist, the Nazis established brothels in several concentration camps. Women, often selected from other camps, were coerced into sexual slavery under the guise of receiving better treatment. These women endured relentless abuse, violence, and humiliation. For many, death was a welcome escape from the horrors they faced. Men who earned visits to these brothels were often rewarded for complying with camp regulations or performing well in forced labor. This system not only dehumanized the women, but reinforced a hierarchy within the camps, pitting prisoners against one another. The existence of these brothels reveals yet another layer of the Nazis' cruelty. Starvation wasn't merely a consequence of the camps. It was a weapon. Prisoners received meals consisting of watery soup and a scrap of bread, designed to keep them alive just enough to work, but not enough to resist. Over time, their bodies wasted away, leading to severe malnutrition, organ failure, and death. The infamous death marches further illustrate the use of starvation as a tool of control. In the final months of the war, as the Allies closed in, thousands of prisoners were forced to march for days in freezing conditions without food or water. Many collapsed and died along the way, their emaciated bodies abandoned on the roadside. Children in concentration camps suffered uniquely horrifying fates. Most were killed upon arrival, deemed too weak to contribute to labor. In Auschwitz, children were often used in experiments, such as Mengelé's twin studies, where they were subjected to surgical mutilation or lethal injections. Infants born in camps faced immediate execution, with some mothers forced to witness their babies' deaths. Despite these atrocities, some parents and fellow prisoners attempted to shield children, often hiding them or sharing their meager rations to keep them alive. These acts of defiance and love highlight the enduring humanity in even the darkest circumstances. The Nazis were experts in psychological manipulation. Upon arrival, prisoners were stripped of their names, belongings, and even their hair, reducing them to numbers. Families were often separated, with false assurances of reunification, only to be sent to gas chambers. Prisoners were sometimes forced to choose who among their loved ones would live or die, a cruel tactic designed to inflict lifelong psychological torment. Even those who weren't directly killed faced the constant fear of arbitrary execution, reinforced by public hangings and brutal punishments. This mental warfare was as devastating as the physical suffering, leaving survivors with deep scars. The Nazis often forced prisoners to play music as others were marched to their deaths, creating an eerie juxtaposition of life and death. Orchestras, formed from camp inmates, were a cruel mockery of culture amidst barbarity. Yet some prisoners used art as a form of resistance. Secretly drawn sketches documented the horrors of camp life, smuggled out to the outside world, and hid evidence of atrocities. While these efforts were often met with brutal punishment, they demonstrated that even in the face of extreme oppression, the human spirit could not be entirely extinguished. The physical remnants of concentration camps still bear witness to the atrocities committed. Gas chambers with claw marks on their walls and burial pits filled with ash remind us of the unimaginable suffering endured by millions. Survivors faced a different battle after liberation, coping with the trauma of their experiences. Many struggled to rebuild their lives, haunted by memories of the camps and the loss of their families. The Nuremberg trials exposed some of the perpetrators, but justice was often incomplete. The world's responsibility now is to remember these stories, ensuring that such horrors are never repeated. The hidden horrors of Nazi concentration camps reveal the depths of human cruelty. From medical experiments and forced prostitution to starvation and psychological manipulation, these atrocities go beyond the commonly known narratives. By uncovering these stories, we honor the victims and confront the true nature of the Holocaust. This history isn't just a lesson in the past, it's a warning for the present. Remembering the forgotten victims and untold stories is our collective responsibility. It's only through awareness and vigilance that we can hope to prevent such inhumanity from ever occurring again.